Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the public will get a chance to give input on an environmental impact study for a proposed freeway. Learn more and get an update on the progress of the South Mountain Freeway. A new study suggests there may be a link between elevated blood sugar levels and Alzheimer's. Find out more about that. And it's Ballet Under the Stars. Ballet Arizona's Topia production at the Desert Botanical Garden has started. All that next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Richard Relison for Ted Simons. A public hearing on a draft environmental impact statement for the proposed South Mountain Freeway will be held Tuesday, all day, at the Phoenix Convention Center. The hearing will provide the public with an opportunity to learn more about the proposed new freeway and provide formal comments. Timothy Tate of the Arizona Department of Public Transportation is here to discuss the upcoming hearing and the latest on the freeway. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
Who do you expect to hear from Tuesday?
We expect to hear from, frankly, everybody. We want to hear from members of the community from across the valley who are interested in this project. This is a project that has regional significance, and we want to hear from folks across the region.
As these things go, do you expect you're going to hear more so from people who are against the freeway being built or against it being built in a certain area than those who support it?
Sure. With events like this, you always hear from the passionate. It could be folks who are opposed to the current alignment, or it could be folks who are very supportive of the current alignment. But we expect to hear a lot from those two ends of the spectrum. But really, we would encourage everybody to come learn more about the project and participate in the public hearing process.
The environmental study itself is pretty thick. It's a pretty thick report. But I guess if you could summarize it, I guess the thing that surprised a lot of people who read it was the fact that the study said that if we don't build the freeway, the air quality gets worse in the city.
Well, not just air quality, but overall, things aren't going to improve if we don't make improvements to the transportation infrastructure. Air quality, surface transportation, just the ability to move around and support the economy really isn't enhanced as the valley continues to grow. Doing nothing really isn't an option. We have to do something to improve the transportation network, and we believe that that something may be the South Mountain Freeway.
Right now, the current alignment on the south end, or the Ahwatukee end, I guess, is pretty set. It seems like there's different options on the west end. Could you describe the preferred option and then maybe why that's better than some of the other options?
Sure. On the west side, there are three options. There's a 59th Avenue option. That's what's preferred. There's a 71st Avenue option, and then there's an option all the way out to Loop 101. The 59th Avenue alignment has been really what's historically identified as the alignment for the freeway. So it's been planned around the freeway infrastructure, which really supports economic development and community development. And that's why several years ago, ADOT identified it as the preliminary preferred alternative, and why now it's identified as the preferred alternative.
Meaning it's been on the books, the line has been there for a while. I mean, this is a freeway that's been studied for decades, but that 59th Avenue alignment has been sketched out for a while?
It has been, yes.
So those who have businesses, there's very few homes, there's apartment complexes, but those who have businesses, live and work in that area, someone should have told them that a freeway might be coming down this
That's
corridor.
right. It's no surprise. It's really no surprise through the entire corridor because, as you said, it's been studied and analyzed really going back since the early 80s.
What do you expect to hear from people on the south end, the Pecos Road alignment? What kind of comments from that time? From that neighborhood?
Sure. Well, we expect comments that you would really expect any time a freeway would be proposed in a neighborhood, and that would be impacts from noise, air quality, light effects, losing the view that they currently have. There's all kinds of impacts, and what it comes down to is you can't build a major transportation infrastructure improvement like a freeway without there being some sort of impacts to the community. But we have to weigh those impacts with the benefits, and ultimately this freeway would carry about 140,000 vehicles a day on its planning horizon. So yes, there's going to be impacts, but really we try to mitigate those as best we can and really look at what is needed for the future of the corridor.
The cars that would be going through South Mountain Freeway, is that new traffic, or is that cars that are being removed from, say, I-10 and the Broadway curve, going into downtown or the west side from the east side?
It's exactly that. It's that exchange of traffic from the southeast valley to the southwest valley. That traffic right now that's using the Broadway curve and Baseline Road and some of those other arterial streets. The Broadway curve, really, if anybody who drives it knows, it's highly congested. There's a lot of vehicles that go through there right now. We're looking out at 2030 and what traffic conditions are going to be then, and we're seeing a significant increase in traffic. So we're trying to find solutions today to our traffic problems in the future.
I know statutorily you have to have this public hearing. On a practical effect, what difference do public comments make? Can they actually move a line on the plan?
They can make a difference, and ADOT hasn't made a decision whether or not this freeway will be built. This is still a proposal, and that really is the effort right now, is to bring this to a conclusion, to make a decision whether or not this freeway will be or will not be constructed. And that's where we're at right now. And that's why we want to hear from people, so that we can make that evaluation, make a final decision, and so people across the alignment can really know what's going to happen.
Are the comments sort of gathered, summarized? I mean, are the decision makers at the hearing all day, or are they given a concise summary of what's said?
Well, because comments come in during the 90-day comment period, those comments are sorted thematically and then responded to in the final environmental impact statement. And that really allows the document to be shaped based on that 90-day comment period.
And finally, right now this study did not include any Gila River land because the tribe has not put it out to its members whether they want to allow the freeway to go through tribal land. If that happens, do we have a new preliminary environmental impact study, another public hearing, another environmental impact study finally?
Yeah, if an alignment were to develop on the Gila River Indian community through new actions, we would have to study that, and it would certainly be another part of the process.
But the environmental impact would then, is it changing the entire study, or is it just looking at this small segment that would go through the tribal land?
It could just be an addendum to the current study, so we wouldn't lose the work that we've invested, but it would be a little bit of additional work to study a new alternative.
So maybe a slight delay, but not years-long delays, if that...
Could be a couple of years.
A couple of years. Well, Tim Tate, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
A new University of Arizona study suggests a possible link between elevated blood sugar levels and a risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. Here to talk about that is Christine Burns, the researcher at the U of A. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We have you in enemy territory. You're on the campus of Arizona State University.
Yes,
and
you do.
We will overlook your affiliation and still assume that your research is credible.
Many thanks.
Well, tell us what you studied. You looked at brain scans of people who showed some predisposition to Alzheimer's and some who had no predisposition to Alzheimer's. Right?
So what we based our research study on is the fact that Alzheimer's disease patients do demonstrate reduced metabolism in some brain areas. And our study looked at healthy folks and how their PET imaging measurements of metabolisms manifested in PET scans.
So the metabolism level, meaning how their brain uses up energy.
Takes up glucose, correct.
And had there been a link before, some thought that the metabolism would affect someone's predisposition to Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so we did see in Alzheimer's disease patients that there was a pattern of reduced metabolism in certain brain areas. So that was what we based the current study on, that there is this picture, so to speak, of the Alzheimer's disease brain with respect to glucose metabolism. In this study, we furthered it by looking to see if elevated fasting serum glucose levels in healthy folks were associated with reduced uptake in these same brain areas.
So someone who has the glucose level you're talking about, the fasting glucose, you were trying to find a link between that number and whether their brain shows that predisposition.
Right, so an association or a correlation. So we were looking to answer the question, if elevated fasting serum glucose rise, are you going to see a reduction in uptake of glucose in these brain areas that are relevant to Alzheimer's disease?
And the result showed?
That it did. So again, in healthy individuals that are non-diabetic, we see an association between elevated fasting serum glucose levels and reduced glucose metabolism in AD-relevant brain regions.
I'm going to try to translate.
Yes.
I'm not that smart. I did go to ASU. So someone whose blood sugar just is a little higher than normal, but not diabetic, you found a link between that and their brain not processing glucose.
Right. And so what we're thinking is that as you are within the normal level of fasting serum glucose ranges, as your fasting serum glucose number rises, there are certain areas of your brain that start to not use that glucose or metabolize that glucose as well. I don't think we would go so far based on this study to say if I have a higher level of fasting serum glucose, I'm more at risk, but there's definitely something going on with respect to that relationship.
That there's a link, and that link merits further study.
Of course, especially since we know that diabetes mellitus has been linked to Alzheimer's disease risk, and fasting serum glucose, particularly elevated levels of that, are an indicator of diabetes mellitus risk, or one of the things that folks with diabetes track for their own health.
What would be the next step? What would be the next study you would want to do that would show a link?
So it would be unwise to just assume that fasting serum glucose was the only risk indicator to look at, especially with respect to risk for diabetes. So I think a future study would include more indicators of poor glucose control, such as insulin. Some folks who struggle with diabetes or prediabetes may be used to glycosylated hemoglobin levels that look at glucose control over time. So to include more variables would be something that we'd want to do. We'd also want to look at this question longitudinally, or long term. In this study, we just looked at a cross-section of folks who are on average about 60 years of age. We want to see what elevated fasting serum glucose at baseline does across the time span to both your brain imaging measurements and your cognitive or memory and thinking scores.
So right now, and I guess even the idea that diabetes is linked to reduced brain function or possible risk for Alzheimer's, and I guess let's start even there. Does diabetes make it more likely you will get Alzheimer's, or is it a risk factor?
Oh, wow. So sometimes those terms are utilized one and the same. I think I feel comfortable saying that diabetes mellitus is definitely one of the risk factors for development of Alzheimer's disease. It has been established along with age, genetics, as one of the top indicators that someone may go on to develop Alzheimer's disease. It is not one of these risk factors that one has to worry about a definite eventual diagnosis, but it's something that I know healthcare professionals want to keep an eye on, and the research community as well.
So I guess, I mean, for those who are, again, in the public, we hear studies like this and think, I now must change my behavior. I guess avoiding getting diabetes, avoiding having high blood sugar is probably a good idea for a host of reasons.
Right. So one of the further extensions of this study that you had alluded to before would be to galvanize the community to get involved, and many of them are, in interventions. My background is in psychosocial interventions for the delay of onset of Alzheimer's disease or cardiovascular disease earlier on in development, so at midlife or earlier.
And do we know whether the blood sugar levels in diabetics or in those who haven't gotten it yet, does it cause the brain to process sugar poorly, that there's just so much coming in, or is it?
Yeah, that's a question we haven't answered yet, but it's a good one. So the link, or the causal link, what is that link? What is the elevated fasting serum glucose doing to brain function or brain structure? That's still a question that needs to be answered, and that can be answered with a different host of neuroimaging modalities, as well as neuropsychological functioning tests, and I'm sure there are lots of other scientists here in Arizona that would love to contribute to answering that question. There's an association, but we don't know the cause.
And it seemed like from this, and again, this is a layman's version of reading the study, I always thought that there was a protein that, if it's seen in the brain, makes you more likely to have Alzheimer's.
So that's a very good point. So that's a biomarker. So that's the beta amyloid protein that's being studied here at Arizona through some of the institutions of the Arizona Alzheimer's Consortium. The beta amyloid protein, protein in cerebrospinal fluid, brain metabolism, hypertension, cholesterol. What researchers here in Arizona and nationally are doing is trying to come up with a model of risk, or a model of risk factors that would most likely predict Alzheimer's disease development. So we are indeed not just looking at one isolated risk factor. Fasting serum glucose seems to play a role, but you bring up a very good point. There's a lot of other variables that we need to consider.
Right, and it looked like this study shows, this could be yet another factor.
Of course, right. One of the many, which is important to remember.
Christine Burns, thanks for joining us this evening. It's a fascinating study.
Thank you.
Tonight, in our Art Beat segment, we tell you about a unique way to experience the ballet. The Ballet Arizona's Topia is back this season. It's a night of dining and ballet under the open skies at the Desert Botanical Garden. Ballet Arizona director Ib Anderson's ballet was created specifically for the garden and is performed on a giant 80-foot stage. Mr. Anderson joins me now to discuss the performance, which runs through June 1st. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Yep.
You created this thing out of whole cloth. How unique is that to have a director create a new ballet?
Well, I'm a choreographer, so I've been doing ballets for like more than 30 years, so it's not so unique. What's unique is that it's a site-specific place, and it's unique that it's an 80-foot stage. Normally, a stage is like 40 feet. And then we are out in the desert, which is, as you know, very unusual. It's also staged every night, specific when the sun goes down. It's right after the sun goes down and the sun goes down between those two buttes in the middle of it. So the show actually starts, I would say, with the sunset, and in some ways you can say that's maybe the most spectacular of the show, but it sets up the mood of what comes next, which is dancing, and it's Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, Pastoral Symphony, on a stage that is 32 inches high. So if you sit a little bit elevated, it will look like you're dancing. You see the dancers dancing in the desert. So I think all the combination together makes for more than it would be if it was just a ballet in a symphony hall.
Yeah, a symphony hall directs the audience's eyes to a single point, or even a single dancer. It seems like on an 80-foot stage, it's even hard for the eye to take in everything that you're presenting.
Well, and it's sort of meant to be like that. It's more like how your eye look when you look at landscape, where you look at this place here over and this place there. And then we are also able to do with lighting, we're actually able to lit the Papagio buttes, which is like over a mile away. And we lit up the landscape, certain parts. So you see trees that are actually literally like a mile away. So that I think is quite amazing, I must say.
When you were there, especially last year as it was presenting, did you watch the audience watch the ballet? Did you see how they were?
Well, I saw all the shows, but I'm sitting usually all the way in the back, so I see the backs of the audience. I think, when you are out there in nature, and especially at sunset, it does something to you in the sense that it quiets you down. And you sort of, it's like a little bit like meditation. And then you have, on top of that, when the sun sets down, you have all the birds flying around. And there also, this time, there's a lot of birds flying around at night. There wasn't last year. I don't know what kind of birds they are, but obviously they are night birds.
They heard about how good the show is.
Well, they get attracted to the light, so you have them flying in over. So, I mean, all those things becomes part of the experience. And the moon looks different each night, and the stars are different. And sometimes we have a helicopter flying over, so... but it becomes part of the show, and yeah.
As you were conceiving of the choreography, did you place yourself mentally out in the desert, or did you actually physically walk through where you thought it might be staged?
No. I mean, the problem is our studio is only 40 feet wide, so when I choreographed it, we actually were out in the parking lot a bit to see if it was possible what I was doing, because we couldn't fit it in the studios. So, and for most part, it was maybe like 3 or 4 things I need to change. What was the question again?
Well, you're saying like how much the desert inspired you, if you had to be in a mental place to think what this would look like against the desert backdrop.
It is about nature, but then the music is about nature. But it's also inspired by, topia means in Roman time, meant landscape painting and also landscaping, architecture and landscape. And that's sort of what I'm after, is painting the landscape and also architecture in the landscape.
And the piece of music too is Beethoven seems like it would be difficult to write or to choreograph too.
Well, I wouldn't ever dare to choreograph to this music if it wasn't because it's out here. Because of the vastness of the nature, somehow the music seems right. The music is, it's one of the greatest pieces of music ever written. And it's huge in scope. But somehow being out there, it's a good balance.
And I know in a story in the Sunday Republic, you told my colleague Carrie Lingle that you think this show could travel, not just be in the desert, but move.
I would love to see it in Greece.
And you also mentioned that it would travel pretty easily as far as packing.
Well, I mean, the costumes could be, you know, in a Safeway plastic bag, you know, because they basically don't wear anything, you know, both out of practicality, but also out of what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, it's last night was close to 100, so
Yeah,
you know,
so you don't want them to faint on stage.
they need some natural air conditioning. So,
Ib Anderson, thanks for joining us this
Thank you.
evening. Friday on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalist Roundtable. Bipartisan funding feuding could mean trouble for passing the state's budget, and Governor Brewer pushes her proposal to simplify the state's tax system. That's tomorrow. Ted will be back for the Journalist Roundtable. Have a good evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.